Hi there and welcome to another video from Hegarty Maths. It's Mr. Hegarty here, and in this video we're talking about dividing with standard form. To kick us off, previously on Hegarty Maths we've talked about what a number needs to look like to be in standard form. Why is this number not in standard form? Well, this here is less than 1 and it's got to be between 1 and 10. It can actually equal 1 as well. So what we do to adjust this is we'd multiply this by 10 to make it 6.7. And this side here, we'd have to, so we keep the balance, divide it by an extra power of 10. Okay, so what we would have here is times 10 to the power of, we've already got negative 3, we're taking off an extra power of 10, it'll be to the negative 4 like that. And that's a skill we're going to need in this video. The next idea I'd like you to think about is the following, some work we've previously done on fractions. If I asked you to evaluate this, could you do it? Well, 12 multiplied by 10 is 120, 4 multiplied by 5 is 20, and how many times does 20 go into 120? The answer is 6. Here, if we had done it this way, well, we could have said 12 divided by 4 is equal to 3, and 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2, and 3 multiplied by 2 is also 6. Now what I'm trying to show you here is if you have a scenario like this, things multiplying on the top and things multiplying on the bottom, what you can effectively do is you can say to yourself, well, I'm going to do that divided by that, and I'm going to do that divided by that, and I'm going to multiply the answer. And it comes from our work on fractions. When we were multiplying fractions, we multiplied the numerators over the multiplication of the denominators. And the same way round, if it's in that form, we can break it out if we want to. And that's what we're going to do when we're doing division with standard form, which I'll show you coming up. Let's start straight away with some examples. Evaluate the following, giving your answer in standard form. The trick to these is to write the division with an over sign. So we're going to say 9 multiplied by 10 to the power of 5, and we're going to divide it by 3 multiplied by 10 to the power of 3. Now this is where the little trick I told you came into play. We can do the numbers divided by each other, 9 divided by 3, and we could do the powers of 10 divided by each other. Okay, and it will just give us our answer in standard form straight away. 9 divided by 3 is 3, 10 to the 5 divided by 10 to the 3 is 10 to the 5, subtract 3, which is 10 to the 2. How straightforward was that? Let's do this one, exactly the same. The trick is to write the division with an over sign or a fraction. 4 multiplied by 10 to the power of 7 over 2 multiplied by 5 to the power of 10. Let's do the 4 divided by 2 separately, and let's do the 10 to the 7 divided by 10 to the 5 separately. 4 divided by 2 is 2, 10 to the 7 divided by 10 to the 5 is 10 to the 7 subtract 5, which is 10 to the power of 2. And the last one, as always, write it as 4.5 times 10 to the power of 11 over 1.5 multiplied by 10 to the power of 3. Let's do this division separate to this division here. So 4.5 divided by 1.5s. How many 1.5s go in 4.5? Well, the answer is 3. 10 to the 11 divided by 10 to the 3 is 10 to the 11, subtract 3, 10 to the 8. And there you go. We've done our division in standard form and given our answer in standard form. We're going to continue with that, other than maybe we're going to have some negative powers, and we're also maybe going to need some adjustments. So the questions are going to get progressively more difficult, but all of the same basic principle. Right, let's try these ones. Pause and have a go if you feel confident. So I'm going to say that's 9 multiplied by 10 to the 3 divided by 3 multiplied by 10 to the 5, and what I'm going to do is my 9 divided by 3 is equal to 3. Now 10 to the 3 divided by 10 to the 5, that's 10 to the 3 subtract 5, and 10 to the 3 subtract 5 is 10 to the negative 2, that's right. 3 subtract 5 is, using the symmetry of subtraction, negative 2. Let's do the same thing here. 4 multiplied by 10 to the 5 over, or divided by, 2 multiplied by 10 to the 7. Let's do the 4 divided by 2 separately, is 2. 10 to the 5 divided by 10 to the 7, 10 to the 5, subtract 7, 10 to the negative 2 again. And the last one, exactly the same process, 4.5 times 10 to the power of 3 over 1.5 times 10 to the power of 11. 4.5 divided by 1.5 is 3, because 3 1.5s go into 4.5. 10 to the 3 divided by 10 to the 11 is 10 to the 3 subtract 11, which by the symmetry of subtraction is 10 to the negative 8. And there you go, we've evaluated those and given our answer in standard form. Just a tiny bit more difficult because we got some negative numbers, but exactly the same really. Let's try some more. Evaluate the following given your answer in standard form. Exactly the same here, other than we've got some negatives on the go. 9 multiplied by 10 to the negative 3 over 3 multiplied by 10 to the power of positive 5. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now 10 to the negative 3 divided by 10 to the 5, that's going to be 10 to the negative 3 subtract 5, which is, we've got negative 3, we take off another 5, that's going to be 10 to the power of, that's right, negative 8. Next one, we're going to say that's 4 multiplied by 10 to the negative 5 over 2 multiplied by 10 to the 7. Now 4 divided by 2, that's the easy bit, is 2. Let's go over here and work this out. 10 to the negative 5 divided by 10 to the 7, so you're dividing, you take the powers away, that's 10 to the negative 5, subtract another 7, that's going to be 10 to the power of negative 12. Last one, 4.5 times 10 to the negative 3 divided by, and oh look here, we've got a negative on the go on the bottom as well, so we're really going to have our wits about us, 1.5 multiplied by 10 to the negative 11. Now 4.5 divided by 1.5, we've done that several times, that's 3. Now 10 to the negative 3 divided by 10 to the negative 11, that's going to be 10 to the negative 3 subtract negative 11. Now you remember from our negative number section, subtracting a negative is like adding, so this is really like 10 to the negative 3 add 11, which is like 10 to the 11 take away 3 really, which is actually 10 to the power of positive 8. So that's where it got a little bit tricky, but please look in the negative numbers section if you are struggling with your negatives, but it's a skill you should know if you're trying to do standard form. Okay, last set of questions. This is going to be slightly more difficult because we're going to need an adjustment as well. So 1 multiplied by 10 to the 3 divided by this. Write it in our normal way. 1 multiplied by 10 to the 3 over 5 multiplied by 10 to the power of 5. Now 1 divided by 5, you should know 1 divided by 5, that's one of the fractions I've told you to memorize, it's 0.2 times 10 to the power of 3 take away 5. 3 take away 5 is negative 2. Now the answer is not quite in standard form, I'm afraid, because that first number is less than 1. So I'm going to have to multiply that by 10, make an adjustment, so that's going to be 2. What I've done is multiply that by 10, and so as not to change the answer, I have to divide that by an extra power of 10, or have 1 less power of 10 here. So that's going to be 10 to the power of 1 less power than negative 2, be negative 3. Okay, next one, we're going to write that as 2 multiplied by 10 to the power of 5, and we're going to say that's over 4 multiplied by 10 to the negative 7. Now the first bit, 2 divided by 4, that's the same as 1 divided by 2, which is a half, so we write 0.5 times 10. Now 10 to the 5 divided by 10 to the negative 7, that's 10 to the 5 subtract negative 7. Subtracting and negatives like adding, that's like 10 to the power of positive 12. Okay, now that's not quite standard form, remember, we've got to multiply this side by 10, so as this number is bigger than 1, so that's going to be 5, and so as not to change the answer, we've got to divide by an extra power of 10 here, that will be 5 times 10 to the power of 1 less 10, which will be 11. And the last one here, do as normal, 3 times 10 to the negative 3 over, divided by 2 times 10 to the power of 11. Now 3 divided by 2, that's 1.5, you should know that one. 1.5, times 10. Now, we've got 10 to the power of negative 3 divided by 10 to the power of 11. So that's going to be 10 to the negative 3, subtract 11. Negative 3, take away another 11, is going to be 10 to the power of negative 14, like that. And actually, in this case, 1.5 is bigger than 1, okay, and is less than 10, so it's absolutely fine to leave it as it is, and we're done. And that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching.